Hello, in this video we're going to see how you can install WordPress in a Docker container. So you can use Docker to self-host your WordPress applications. If you don't know, WordPress is one of the most used CMS on the market. It has more than 40% of the entire internet CMS marketplace. And in this video, we are going to see exactly how you can use Docker to install WordPress. And in this installation, we are just going to install WordPress, and it will have some images in there that will help us. So in here, I've already written an article with all of these details and with a Docker Compose file that you can take and use it. So basically what we are going to have, we will have a WordPress container with the application. So this is the official WordPress image. I will use the last one, but you can choose the one you like in here, and you can even go and use some of the beta one, or you can use one that it has a different PHP version and so on. And the other thing that we are going to have, it will be a database container. We're going to use MySQL to host the database. We're going to install also the phpMyAdmin. In here, a container that will help us connect to the WordPress database and do things in there if you want. You will have also a container that will do automatic database backups. This container, it will just use sqldump to dump the database and have a backup in case something goes wrong. We're gonna have a SSL certificate. For this, we're gonna use the Cloudflare tunnels. And we are gonna use Redis also for this. So if you don't know, Redis is an in-memory database that it will cache the database queries and it will not load your server that much. So we are gonna use this. And for managing all of these containers and the configuration, we are going to use Docker for this. And this is applications that will help you manage the Docker containers easily. You can use it to deploy Docker Compose files and so on. I've already created a video with all of these details in the past with the steps that you need to install Docker, but you can also use without a problem Docker Compose to bring up your containers. And yeah, in next section we are going to see exactly what you need to do. So the first thing that you will need to have is to have a VPS. And in there you need to have Docker installed and Docker if you're going to use that. And I've already created a video in the past with all of these configurations, so I will just link it into the description so you can follow that and set up your environments. But if you have other environments already set up, you can use that. And yeah, the next thing that we are going to do is to have the Docker Compose file, and this is the Docker Compose file. The first option, it will be the Docker Compose file that will not have the Redis installation. But for this video, we're going to use the Redis installation also, so you can see exactly how this is done and have it configured. So let me fetch this Docker Compose file, and we are going to copy it and put it in a container in here. So this is the Docker, and in here we are just going to add the compose file. So yeah, in here you just give it the name, like it will be WordPress. And in this area we'll have the Docker Compose file that we are going to see exactly what we'll have. So this Docker Compose file, it will have the following things. It will have the image, it use the WordPress latest, but you can use the exact version you want. It will have the restart policy, so if this thing is not stopped manually, it will start automatically. Here you have the port. Basically you can use what port you want. For this I'm just going to use the 5010 and it's going to the 80. And in here you have some volumes. So the first volume that we're going to have is the one that it's holding the PHP configuration. So this is useful if you want to increase the execution time, the upload size for the files in WordPress. So you can add various php.ini parameters in here, and if you restart it, you will see that you will be able to upload bigger files and so on. We are going to also create these configurations to see exactly how it's working. And in here you have the environment variables for the WordPress image. So in here you have the WordPress DB host, it will be the UPDB with the port, it will be the DB name, DB user and the DB password for this. It will depend on WordPress database, which is the next layer, and it's basically the MySQL latest database that it will going to be used. You can choose the exact version like MySQL 5.8 if you're running this for the production, but in here I will use just the latest, so in case someone will want to fetch the file to use the latest things, same, it will be restarted unless it's stopped. In here you have the same environment details with the database root password, user, and so on. This will be stored in an environment file to be secured and not display the password in this file. And in here you will have the phpMyAdmin image in the next layer, and in here the same, it will need a port, so you can connect to it. You can use the port or you can add it in a subdomain, it's up to you. And again, it will be the 5011. This time you can choose what port you want, and in here you have some volumes that is going to some configuration files that phpMyAdmin has, so you can modify them in case like you have big databases and you need some special parameters and so on. And again, in here you have the port that is used to connect to the database. You can put the upload limit, so basically if you're trying to load the database into this, you will need to increase the limit, because for instance the default one is 2 megabytes and maybe you have like 100 or 200 megabytes of database, and you can just increase this parameter to accommodate your needs. Okay, the other thing that we have in here is the updb backup. So this is the container that is responsible for helping us doing backups for the database. It's using this tired of it db backup image, and in here you have the volume where the backup will be stored, and in here you have the environment variables that will tell what is database type, what is the db host. Here is the database name, user, and password. Here is the backup interval, the cleanup time. This is in minutes. You can alter them as you want. In here it will also create a checksum. It will compress this to not use a lot of space. And in here you have the Redis that WordPress it will use to connect to it. I didn't expose the ports to the Redis WordPress because I just want these WordPress installations to use them, but you can also expose these ports to the VM directly, like this if you want. So the ports to be accessible directly in the VM. The same is for the database. I didn't include any port in here because I just need this WordPress installation to connect to this port. But if you're using a third-party connection tool, you can expose this port and connect to the database remote. But yeah, for this I don't need to do that, because basically I just want every WordPress installations to have its own container for all of these things. So in case something happens, to not have problems. So right now we have added our Docker Compose file in here, and it has all the configurations that we need. And the next thing that we're going to do is to go and add the environment file. So you see in here that you will have also all the explanations for all of these parameters. In this article you can go and check them, and in here I will create an environment file with the db name, user, password, and the root password. You can modify them as you like. For this I will just use this generic name so we can see how we can add them. So let's go into Docker, and in here in Docker you have options to add the environment file easily, like this. And basically this should be all the configurations that we need. We set up the name, and right now we just need to save this. So right now we just saved the configuration file, and the next thing that we should do is to go and create the path to the config files. So basically you need to go into the terminal, and you are going to create these files, because otherwise if they are not existing there, Docker it will try to create directly folders, and you can not alter your ini configurations. So I will just open the terminal, and I will go to the path where WordPress is installed. So in here it will be opt stacks, and it will be WordPress with the name that we've chosen. And in here you'll see that you have your compose file. And for this we're just going to go and make this directory with the config files that it will going to be used by the Docker images. So I have created this, and then we are going to go and touch and create some files that the Docker installer it will use to configure the parameter for PHP. So right now we should have all of these files created. If we go and do ls-ltr, you'll see that you'll have this configurations file created there. So they are blank, they are not existing in the Docker yet. So the next thing that we are going to do is to go and start the Docker container files, and let's go into Docker. And right now we should go and start this. And this should start the container and should bring up all the containers in here. So you see that everything is up and running. It has a good status in here. Also, you can go and do a docker compose up -d if you want to not use Docker for this. It's up to you. It's just my preferred way to administer this container because I want to have an interface and make things easier. So the next thing that we're going to do is to go and create a tunnel for this. So I'm here in the tunnels in Cloudflare, and I will add a public hostname. So for this you can add a subdomain or the main domain, it's up to you. But for this I will just put this into the WordPress subdomain, and I will choose in here the main domain. And in here you'll put the HTTP, and in here you will have the local host with the port that you have set up, and it will be the 5010 that we've configured in the compose file. And in here you just hit save hostname, and right now Cloudflare will create a tunnel to our local host with the port that we are gonna use to connect. It takes some time, so let's wait. This was created successfully, and right now what we should do is to go and access this domain or subdomain like this. And the first thing that you will notice is you'll see the installation in here, and in here you'll see that you have a certificate added which is valid and you can access the WordPress installation securely. Let's choose our language in here, and in here you put a website name. It will be WordPress Docker for this. And in here you have your username. I will set up your admin username, and in here you have a password. Let me put it something easy that we are going to use. You should put something strong, but this is just for testing purposes. And in here you put your email address. In here you have the options to not index this in the search engines if you want. I will hit install. Okay, and right now you have the login, and what we are going to do is to go and log into the admin interface. And right now we're in the administration area of WordPress, and in here you can go and install plugins, themes, and do your configurations. So for instance, what I'm gonna do, I will change the permalinks for this to be in a friendly matter. It will be like this with the domain and the post name. I will hit save changes, and let's go and visit the site. So you see in here that right now you have the WordPress website, and this is the default theme that it's added. You can go and customize it as you like. If you have the sample page in here that it's pointing to a nice URL, and right now you have the functional WordPress installation with everything you want. And what we should do next is to go and, for instance, let's go and see if we can access the phpMyAdmin. So you can go and the same, if you want to access this securely, you can create a subdomain in here for your PHP MyAdmin. I will just go into Docker for this, and I will try to access it directly with the port. And in here you will have the username and password. For this you see that this is not secured, so you can make it in a subdomain if you want, and to not expose this port, it's up to you. And let's go and take the environment password and other things that we have in here for the database. So the database, it will be WordPress, the user is UP, and the DB password is WordPress. So let's go and access this, and it will be UP, the username, and this will be the password. You put it in there. So right now you see in here that we are logged into the phpMyAdmin, and you can go into the WordPress database and do the things you want in there. So you have also the access to this. The other thing that we are going to do next is to change some PHP parameters, because you'll see in here, for instance, in WordPress, if we want to load a file, if we go to media library, add new file, you'll see that will only, for instance, by default, PHP will only allow you to upload files with 2 megabytes. And to do this, we're just going to go and copy some parameters that we have. Let's go and check the parameters. So in here, I will put the details into the config, the up php.ini file, and in here you have file uploads on, you have the memory limit that you can increase depending on the application size, upload max file size, post size, execution time that will be increased for PHP in case you have like bigger applications that needs this. So I will just copy this parameter, I will go into this configuration file, and then we are just going to go and see how it will work. So for this, I will go into the config. Let me clear this. So this is the file up_php.ini, and I will just go and edit this, and I will just add our parameters in here. And right now I will save the file. So what you should do next is to just go and restart this container, because it will need to read these parameters again so they can be utilized. And to do that, we can just run the Docker compose, or we can use docget to restart everything. I will just use the compose to restart only this and see how it's going. Okay. So right now, if we go again into this and media add new, you'll see that the max upload file size, it will be 64 megabytes. So you can go and upload bigger files if you want. So you can add the PHP parameters your application needs without a problem. So yeah, also what you can do next is to go and see if the backups are just running. By default, it will start creating this backup right now. And afterward, we're just going to go and configure Redis for this. So you can see how you can do that. It will be very easily. So if you go to backups in here, you will see that you have some backup files, and backups have been started. So right now, automatic backups are in place, and your database, it will be backed up automatically. If you go in here, you will see that you have the WordPress file. So wp-app, you will have the WordPress installation. I will just go in here because we're just going to go in here, and we'll need to configure Redis for this to work. So you see in here that you have all the WordPress installation, and you have the phpAdmin, content, and all the files. So this will be stored in here. It will just going to use the www.datauser. So this is not running under root. So in case something happens with WordPress and it's been hijacked, it will not use root, which is a good thing, because the infected files, it will not have access to your root. And next, we are going to go and configure Redis. So we already added Redis in the configuration file, and the container, it's up and running. And what we should do to have this configured is to go and modify the up-config PHP file, because we have Redis set up in the Redis W host. It will use the default port for Redis, and we are just going to need and modify this config file and add these two lines in there with the port and with the host for Redis. And let's go and do just that. And in here we have the up-config file that we are going to modify. And in here you have the database and so on. And we are just going to add this in the space after the database details. I'll just add a new line, and I will just copy the two files. I will just save this. And right now WordPress should know the Redis configuration. And what we are going to do is to go and install a plugin for this, because WordPress will need a plugin to work with Redis, and the plugin name is Redis Cache for this. And you can go and add the plugin in plugins, add new, and we're just going to search it and you'll see that it's here. Install now. And we are just going to activate it. And right now this is the plugin interface. In settings Redis, you have the details, and in here the status is not started. We are just enable the object cache for this. So right now the Redis in-memory database will be used to connect to the database. So every time when a query is done through the database, it will go to the cache, it will be stored there, and it will make things move faster. So in here you see that this is started, and right now we don't have any data, but if we just go and do some things in here, this should be populated. Let's go and see. Let's see. So right now you see that the cache it started and it's working. So yeah, this is how you are installing WordPress in a Docker container. You can install different containers for this if you want, with different WordPress applications. You can alter the files, you have backups, you have the way to connect to the database. So you have everything that you need to host your WordPress in a Docker container. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.